Nowadays, you need a cell phone to do just about anything, including work. Almost every job has an app that you use to check your timesheet for the week, and sometimes to even clock in and out for your shift. That's why when I dropped my phone while I was taking pictures on my family vacation, I had to quickly figure out a way to get a new one on a budget. And after not finding anything suitable on the Facebook Marketplace, I checked Craigslist. I felt lucky to find that someone was giving away their old Galaxy. The post said first come first serve, so I reached out to the seller immediately through my email. I was surprised when he told me that the phone was still available, and I didn't waste any time asking for a place that would be good to meet him and then going to pick up the phone. We ended up meeting at a gas station about 20 minutes from my house. He showed up in a blue Mazda Miata and introduced himself as Sam before showing me the phone. Everything looks great on it as far as the screen goes, so I didn't waste any more time on the inspection. I thanked him for the phone, and then we parted ways. As I was on my way home, I felt myself getting hungry, so I decided to stop for a burger real quick. And while I ate, I powered up the phone only to immediately be bummed out. The phone turned on just fine, but it hadn't been factory restored yet, so it was still locked by Sam's password. I tried not to stress out about it though. I figured that I could get home and either email Sam about it or just find a way to reset the phone myself with the internet's help. So when I got home, I did just that. I sent Sam an email, and while I waited, I began looking things up. Believe it or not, I couldn't find much about unlocking a phone that I didn't know the password to, so I was left with no other option than to wait for Sam to reply. I waited and waited, refreshing my email every couple of minutes to see if he responded, but there was nothing. And by the time that I decided to call it quits for the night, it was already almost 10 o'clock and time for me to go to sleep. All I could do at that point was hope that Sam would get back to me in the morning. However, as I went to lie down, a noise from the other side of my house stopped me in my tracks. I stopped to listen for it again, and that time, it was much more distinct. My eyes widened and my heart began to beat rapidly as I realized what I was hearing was the sound of the sliding glass door opening and closing. You see, the lock on the sliding door had always been fickle, so I put a plank of wood along the track that it slides on so that it could only be opened about an inch or two before stopping. Although they couldn't get in through the door, there wasn't any doubt in my mind that someone was trying to break into my house. As I slowly made my way out of the room and toward my landline to call the police, I noticed the sound stop. But before I could even begin to hope that whoever it was had left, I began hearing the sound of the regular doorknob attempting to turn. It's a good thing that the lock worked fine on that door. I made my way over to the phone to call the police, and as soon as I was on the line with someone, I began talking loudly, hoping that it would cause whoever was trying to break in to stop. And it seemed to work because it wasn't long after I started the call that I heard a car starting up in the street in front of my house. I ran over to the window hoping to catch a license plate or something, but I didn't need one. Right away, just by looking at the blue Miata driving away from my house, I knew that it was Sam. Once the police arrived, I explained what happened and why I suspect it was Sam. That was when one of the officers asked me to see the phone I had purchased, and she figured it out right away. Sam had given me an active phone with the location turned on so that he could track it into my house. They suspect that he was planning on robbing me, or worse, and then taking the phone back. Sadly, there wasn't any real evidence that he was the one who tried to break in, so all I could do was turn the phone off until I figured out how to reset it and hope that they didn't try to break in again. For 2 years around 2011, my older brother Theo and I started up a small brother-sister housekeeping service that we would advertise for all over Facebook, Instagram, and even for a short period of time, even Craigslist. We had a few regular customers that would require our cleaning services once or twice a month all year round. but the majority of our income came from one-time jobs for customers that found us while scrolling around online. Now, when it came to taking a job, we used to always ask the same questions, like what sort of space will we be cleaning? Is it a house or an office? How many rooms? That sort of thing. And for the most part, we never turned any jobs down. Most of our work came in through people who found us on Facebook, but I'll never forget our one and only customer that contacted us through Craigslist. It was actually the reason why we ended up taking the post off Craigslist in the first place. It's just too fishy. I remember being emailed by a potential customer that said they found our ad on Craigslist and could really use someone to clean their small 2-bedroom home. They gave me their address and I checked to see if it was within our radius. And though it was in the middle of nowhere, it was surprisingly within our zone. I quoted the customer and they agreed to the price before setting a date. Now I want to remind you that the only two people who worked for our cleaning company were my older brother and me. So when we took a job, both of us showed up. That day, we both hopped into the van with our supplies and made our way out to what felt like the middle of the woods. I remember thinking we must have gotten lost as the van started heading down a dirt road. But as soon as I saw the cabin, with a man who looked like he was around 45 or 50 years old, standing outside of it waving us in, I realized that we were in the right place. It was just way more secluded than I had thought. Theo parked the van, and after gathering our supplies, we made our way up the front porch and introduced ourselves to the owner. He didn't seem to be interested in introductions, however, and just brushed it off and began walking us into the house. As soon as I stepped inside, I couldn't help but feel a bit confused at how clean the place already looked. I remember thinking that there wasn't going to be much for us to do, and before I could even look at Theo to see his reaction, he was already saying to the owner how nice the place looked. I figured that one or both of the rooms must have been a mess though, so I prepared to get to work. But as I leaned over to put the bucket that I was carrying with cleaning supplies onto the floor, I heard Theo let out a quick gasp before the booming sound of a gunshot began ringing through the entire living room. I practically fell to the ground as I jumped from the sound, and as I looked behind me toward Theo and the owner of the house, I saw that Theo had dropped to the floor with his hand placed over his stomach. I looked over toward the owner who was carrying what looked like a rifle pointed toward Theo. I let out a scream as I began running through the house to the nearest open door. I ran through it and found myself inside what looked like a spare bedroom that was full of boxes. I threw the door shut behind me and began shoving anything that I could find in front of it. I could hear the man on the other side trying to get through, which was when I saw the window. I quickly ran across the room and practically threw myself through the window and into the man's backyard. I began sprinting through the woods as I fumbled for my phone in my pocket. I called the police as I took cover in the thick grouping of bushes, just hoping that the man wasn't following me. I expressed the urgency to the person on the other end of the line and explained that my brother had been shot. They sent police and EMTs to the address that I had sent them, and by the time they had got there, the man was just sitting on his front porch with the rifle laying on the ground. They were able to arrest him and help Theo before it was too late. During the trial, when he was asked why he did it, the man said that it was the voices in his head. The prosecutor believed that he was trying to go for an insanity plea though. The man ended up getting 25 years to life in prison. One of the hardest things to get rid of for some reason is an old couch. It never goes the way you expect it to. I'll never forget, after my roommate and I decided to splurge a bit and get a whole new furniture set for our living room, we ended up posting the old couch on Craigslist for free. We didn't want any money, we just didn't want to have to pay the dump or whoever to come pick up the old couch for us. And even then, it sat up there for 2 weeks before someone responded showing interest. Once we finally had someone lined up to come and take the couch, we set up a time that we would both be home and told them to come by. A man who looked like he was around our age showed up at around 4 in the afternoon in a Tacoma pickup truck, and we invited him into our house so he could pick up the couch. Once he was inside, we learned that his name was Ian, and that he had just got a new place, so the couch was working out perfectly for him. This was good to hear, but as we began lifting the couch to help him carry it outside, something else caught his eye. You see, 2 days before he showed up for the couch, I decided to get myself a PS5, but I hadn't had a chance to play it yet, so it was still in the box. This prompted Ian to ask if I was selling the PlayStation as well. I chuckled a bit and said no, sorry, and the three of us continued bringing the couch out to his truck. After that, Ian said his goodbyes, thanked us for the couch, and left, and we thought that was the end of it. But it turned out that he was more interested in the PlayStation that he had let on. You see, that night I ended up getting around to setting it up and playing it for a while, which resulted in me falling asleep on our new couch in the living room. But I was woken up in the middle of the night, not by a sound, but by the overwhelming sensation that somebody was watching me. I could feel the hairs on my neck standing up, and I hesitated to look over to the window, but when I finally did, no one was there. I brushed off the feeling and convinced myself that I must have just been having a bad dream, and woke up feeling tense. I went into my room after waking up and fell asleep without any issues, this time sleeping through the rest of the night. When I woke up though, I was surprised when my roommate asked me if I heard anything weird last night. He said that it sounded like someone was walking around outside, but when he checked, he didn't see anything. So I told him about me waking up in the middle of the night thinking that someone was watching me. We both thought it was weird, so we decided to check out the cameras that we had outside of our front door pointed to the road and on our mailbox pointed toward our house, and we were shocked. At around 2:15 in the morning, someone began slowly making their way across our yard, walked up to our windows, and began looking inside. That was most likely when I woke up because you could see the person in the video duck away from the window really quickly. They sat underneath our living room window for about 5 minutes before they began walking around to all of the windows in our house. At one point, it even looked like they touched one, as if they were trying to open it. Once they realized they weren't getting in, the man could be seen walking back across the yard. That was when the mailbox camera caught his face clearly enough to recognize that it was Ian. We called the police and showed them the security footage that we had, but because all we had was a first name and no address, they couldn't do anything about it. All they said was to call them if he came back, but he never did after the first time.